people spend more time researching what kind of vehicle they're going to get than they do choosing an FMO. It's like, man, this is who I'm choosing to partner with, who I'm choosing to do business with.
There's got to be some balance to that, right? They're your partner and they're going to help you in building your business. But at the end of the day, it's still all in the hands of the agent to take action, right?
We'll start with the best intentions. They're like, oh, I'm going to be your top producer. I'm going to do all of these different things. And then we don't really see a whole lot of production come from them. Everybody, welcome back to Medicare Agent IQ. I am Raul Gonzalez.
And I'm Oscar Ibieta.
And today we are just going to continue where we were with the choosing the right FMO or choosing the right upline. And we left a lot out from the last episode.
Yeah, we thought we had enough for one episode. Turns out we had to stop and break it up into 2 episodes. So the plan today is just to pick up where we left off last week.
Kind of finish that. Where did we end last week?
So the last thing we touched on was getting the real training, not just contracting help. And what we had next was technology and operational support when choosing the right FMO. So what are your thoughts on that? Technology. I mean, I have some thoughts. Just I think back to what things looked like in 2013, but.
Go back. You know what? Let's go back to the way things used to be in 2013.
Technology was definitely a thing for the younger folks that are listening. We had that back then, but it looked a lot different. Of course, writing business everything was paper application. There was no such thing as electronic apps and submitting things electronically.
I mean, there was, and we were trying to go that direction.
That's the direction.
But it just wasn't super easy. It wasn't like super user friendly. I had an iPad, and I remember back in that very first year, there being like this struggle because you'd have to download. Every single company had their own app that you would be able to download, so that way you could do that. And so it's kind of annoying to work with. But today there's so much more, and so I should start with make sure that whatever upline that you go with, that there's an option for just a tool that you can enroll multiple carriers, right? So there's, now there's Sunfire, there is Connecture, and then even
Health Sherpa
Medicare.
They're in the Medicare space now, yeah.
I actually really like the idea of Health Sherpa. To me, it's just the more that I see it for Medicare, I'm like, hey, this could really work. This really could make sense.
This is not a plug. We are not sponsored.
Yeah,
by Health Sherpa,
but we will accept sponsoring. I've seen it, and I think it's great. And to be honest, if you're not using that, if you don't have an upline that is really even encouraging you to do that, you need to make sure that's something that you're doing. And so make sure, find out, what kind of technology that they have. I think that quoting tools is also super important for Medicare supplements, right? Or even final expense is one of those things, right? Where you're like, man, like I need to be able to get several quotes at one time. I don't want to have to go into Mutual of Omaha, then go to look at Physicians Mutual, then go look at this carrier, that carrier to get quotes for their Medicare supplements. I want an all-in-one place where I can get that.
Right. And that's what it used to be like, right? When I remember being out in the field and looking up, I've got to look up all these doctors, and I have to go and log into United Healthcare first and see if the doctors are in the network with them. And then I had to go and check the medications with United Healthcare. And then if I wanted to see if Aetna was an option, I'd go to Aetna's portal, and I'd have to check doctors there, and I'd have to check meds and so on for each and every carrier. And so it was just, there was a lot of legwork involved in the process of working with prospects and potential clients. And so now we have all these platforms, all these tools in place. So if you're not using them, you absolutely need to be using them. But what they do is they make you much more efficient. We tell everybody these things aren't bulletproof, right? The accuracy on them, I would say, is about as accurate as it is, on the carrier side, right? Even the carrier portals are not always 100% accurate as far as, medications being covered or doctors in the network. But these quoting platforms are the same way, right? They're not perfect, they're not bulletproof, but my gosh, do they really eliminate a lot of the work that is involved in the process. So I tell people they do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. They don't do all of the work for you, but they do most of the heavy lifting for you. But you still got to make sure that you're tying everything up and bringing the pieces together, making sure that everything matches up. Right,
for sure. And I would say the last kind of big piece of technology that is super important is a CRM. Not every national marketing organization or NMA or large FMO offers that, but I think it's something that's super important that you get your hands on. So even if they don't, like there's some out there that might offer reimbursement to be able to get that based off of production.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of CRM that you're using, and again, if you can find an upline that does the CRM for you or that pays for it or at least offers that reimbursement just would make a lot of sense. It's very important, very valuable tool. So you want to make sure that they do that. And then one other question when it comes to technology that you should ask your upline is, if there's an issue, is there someone who can help me if that technology breaks? Because we've seen it where, you might wait 2 weeks to get a response on things like that. And it happens, but you just want to make sure that they have someone that's available to be able to answer the questions and to help get you fully trained on that as well. So on to the next one. Let's talk real quick about compliance support. There's in this world, in Medicare, there's changes that happen all the time. And I have in the past, I know that, dealing with our NMAs, that we've connected with, I've always had the question of if these changes are happening, I need them communicated in a really good way. And so what I mean is, send out a special communication email. And so the question that you want to ask your upline is who is communicating the compliance changes to me? Because they're so important. There's rule changes that happen every single year. And I want to make sure that my upline is actually getting that stuff communicated to me. Fair enough.
Yeah, and it comes down right from the NMA to down to the FMO to the agency partners all the way down to the field, the field agents. So wherever it is that you fall in there, you just got to make sure that there is, again, to your point, the question that you need to be asking is there a line of communication when it comes to compliance? Because we've seen a lot of stuff that goes out there, marketing pieces on social media, or just you see them out in the field where these things are really they're not compliant, and you just have to make sure that you're operating in a compliant manner. It's an important piece to all of this. I tell people nothing is worth not going through compliance or making sure that things are in order, or that you're doing things right. Nothing is worth potentially losing or risking your license or your contracts with some carriers if you're not operating in a compliant manner. So don't overlook those things too. I think sometimes agents get into the business, they're new to the space, and they come from other sales backgrounds where there was not a ton of compliance, and they jump into this world thinking, okay, they're just going to kind of keep doing what they're doing, not fully understanding how much compliance there is when it comes to this. So we love to see people who are eager and want to get out there and get after it, but just make sure that you're always playing by the rules.
Yeah, and another thing to think about while you say that is there's people who come into this industry and they're used to making their own marketing materials. They're used to kind of building those things out. So you want to have an FMO that you connect with that you can send that stuff to for approval. And so there's some things that have to be approved still by CMS, and then there's other things that you can send to your FMO and say, hey, look, you're not mentioning benefits, you're not mentioning certain things. Yeah, go ahead and get that done. And you'd love to have a relationship with your FMO where they can share that information with you. And so you want to find out who's doing that. Do you guys have a full compliance department that can help me? And if you're connecting with the GA, usually, obviously, they're not going to have a compliance department, right, but they have an upline and
should have access to
and
one.
You should be able to get one. And you want to make sure that it's easy access. And so I remember, this was years ago, but we were connected with a national FMO that I just didn't feel like I could get a whole lot of information on compliance from them or really be able to talk to anyone. And, we were a pretty large agency at the time. And I just kind of felt like, man, we should be able to have some conversations. And so you want to know when you're shopping around that you would be able to have that. So that's a question that I would ask.
Yeah.
So let's just jump on in real quick to making sure that our expectations are correct. So, all of these things with an FMO are important. So, the stuff we talked about last week, the stuff we talked about this week, but really there is a part that you're responsible for as an agent, right? There's only so many things that I can do as your upline to help you to be successful. A big part of it comes to you. And so we see agents all the time that will start and with the best intentions, they're like, oh, I'm going to be your top producer. I'm going to do all of these different things. And then we don't really see a whole lot of production come from them. And so it's like, well, if the FMO, if your upline did their job completely, there's a big part that comes down to the agent and how hard they're going to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's important, right? They're not just going to, like I mentioned last week, right? Don't just expect or completely rely on your upline to do all of that work for you. There's got to be some balance to that, right? They're your partner and they're going to help you in building your business. But at the end of the day, it's still all in the hands of the agent to take action, right? How you rely on your FMO to put a plan together, but when it comes to the execution of that plan, you've got to get out there, right? You've got to get out there into the field, whatever that plan looks like. And obviously, there will be questions while you're out there trying to execute. That's where you go to your partner, your FMO, and ask those questions, kind of work through those things. But ultimately, if you're not, taking action and getting out there and getting in front of people or executing on whatever plan it is that you've put together, it's going to be hard to find success in this space.
Yeah, and I think that you need to approach this as if you're starting any other small business. And that's where a lot of agents get confused. They approach it like they're starting a new job. And you even hear it in the language, right? When you're having a conversation with them and they're like, yeah, I started this new job, or, it's like, no, it's not a job. You started an agency. You are an agent that is starting as an independent insurance agent and kind of going into it with that mindset. I'm independent, but I do have these people that are here to help me. There's not a lot of businesses that you can start where you've got other people that are responsible for your success or take an amount of responsibility for your success. Right. So that's actually a pretty cool thing. But remembering that this is me, I need to be a self-starter. And there's been times where, just even within our own agency where people will start out and then we're focusing on other things because we have, a lot of agents, we have a lot of different things going on, and then they don't move much further after that. And it's like, well, the last time that I talked to you, this is what you did. Where are you? Oh, I was kind of waiting to see what would happen with you. I'm like, no, you've got to be the person that kickstarts this. And when you're out there and you're learning and you're doing things, if you have questions while you're out there, that's what we're here for. Yeah. I can't be the person that starts you, that gets you in that right direction, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck in the mud. And right. One thing, I don't know why, as you were saying what you were saying, I had this thought come to mind, like, what if you wanted to open up a food truck, right? What would that look like? Are you just going to sit around and wait for somebody to tell you all the steps that you need to open up this food truck? Or are you going to start drawing out a list, right? These are all the items that I need. This is where I need to go. Where can I get supplies? Where can I, you have to be the person that's thinking of all those things. And I feel like people sometimes they can come into this space and look at it like a job as opposed to starting a business. And so have that food truck approach, right? You've got to put this whole thing together and you've got to put it all in motion. And if you're not the one taking action on it, then you're not going to get it very far with that food truck. Again, same thing over here in this space. Treat it like it is your business, because it is literally your business that you were starting up.
Yeah, I really feel like that's one of the biggest causes, hang-ups. Thank you. One of the biggest hang-ups that agents do have is that they we see it all the time. They don't go into it with an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think that's one of the biggest hang-ups that people do have. So let's go ahead and jump over real quick to the 8 questions that you should ask before you sign with a Medicare FMO. And that first question is, what support do I get immediately after onboarding? And so first thing is, like, an agency should send you out all the contracting, right? Get all that to you. But what happens if you're struggling through it? And so again, this is another one where I want to say you have some responsibility here. Don't just have those contracts and be like, oh, I was waiting for someone to call me to help me go through them. Get out there, start it. It's just paperwork. Like, this is all you have. It's stuff that I don't know. Put your name, your address, your social security number. If you have a question, text us or send us a message. But you've got to start on it. But what happens after I get that onboarding? And we want to know, like, tell me what it's going to look like. Like, are you going to be giving me training? Are you going to be what does the next 30 days look like? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And then one question that I think would be fantastic is, and just know this: if you go to an FMO, I want you to know if they're doing it the right way. Most likely, the top producing agents in that FMO are probably getting a higher level of service. Right? And that's natural. That's a natural thing, right? If you're in a good sales organization, you want people to be taking care of the top producers, right? So maybe I would ask the question of, you know what? I don't want to get a recommendation from your top producers. Can you give me someone that's kind of middle of the road, or I wouldn't say a low producer, because they're probably watching Judge Judy.
They're out there, right? And they are going to be attached to all FMOs across the board. But I like what you said, right? Somebody who is just a kind of that mid-level producer.
Yeah, they're steady. They produce. They're not the outliers, which that top 10% of agents, right? But maybe talk to someone in that 50-60% range of production and just get a feel for what they think, and just ask them, like I would like to talk to other people. We've talked about this last time, right? Like, people spend more time researching what kind of vehicle they're going to get than they do choosing an FMO. It's like, man, this is who I'm choosing to partner with, who I'm choosing to do business with. I need to make sure that they're good, right? Yeah. So find out, get them to connect you with some other producers. And then a real good question is, what does my hierarchy look like, and who's involved in my production? And so a lot of times you'll see a small agency and they'll connect with an agent and don't really talk much about their upline. And to me, if I'm going with like a GA, to me, I'm really wanting to know, okay, now we're connected with this GA. Now tell me about the NMA. Tell me about the national FMO. I want to know what they do, because that's super important. So especially if you're going to go in, and I do think there's a lot of value in signing up in someone's hierarchy. I think that there's more value in going with a GA who knows what they're doing than signing up and going directly to an NMA. Would you agree with that?
Key word, right? That knows, or key phrase, a GA that knows what they're doing, and not a GA who maybe just picked up a contract, quickly somewhere, but they're also new to this space or don't have a lot of experience in the space. So make sure that if it is somebody that knows what they're doing. But to your point, you get more layers of support, right? If you're in with a GA, you've got extra layers thrown in there. You've got the GA. There's likely an MGA above that, or just the FMO. But knowing that there are added layers of support. I don't think you don't lose anything by partnering with a GA over going direct. If anything, you're just getting that extra support. So
I would say you usually don't. There's every once in a while, like I remember with my first NMA that I was connected with, they would advertise on their website that they would pay, or like they would help people pay for for their marketing, but you had to be a direct agent. I was like, man, that's awful. Like, I'm sorry, like no. And again, I actually think highly of them, and I'll never say who they are, but they were actually very good in a lot of ways. But man, like you can offer, they're making enough where they can offer, even if they're with an MGA, even if they're with an FMO, that they'd be able to offer everything to them. So, but yeah, find out where that hierarchy is. And again, I would say if you can connect through a GA, through an MGA, someone who's still hungry, wanting to help other people be successful, trying to build their agency, that's a pretty good place. What I would ask too then, since we're on that, is ask them what percentage of your overall agency production comes from you. And if they're like, yeah, like 95%, like I'm out there and I'm dominating the market, maybe personally, and everyone has their own preference. Some people might be like, well, I want to learn from the best, right? A lot of times they're focused on themselves, right? And so there's again, there's other people out there that are doing it right. But again, if you're doing 95% of your agency's production, probably not focused as on other people's production.
Right. That just means 95% of your time, it could be going towards your production, where really you need a GA who has the time to spend with you. So more than anything, associate yourself, connect yourself with somebody who's got the time and somebody that you're going to have access to. Yeah. I think that's important, that there's going to be a direct line of contact, knowing that if you run into those issues, if you need help with something, with the onboarding, the training, any hiccups here and there, that you can just pick up the phone and call somebody, or they're a text message away, and you're not having to call these numbers and being put on wait or waiting, a few days before getting a response.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a quick story. So there is an agent. So our agency is not a top of line, direct to carrier contract agency. We have an NMA that we're part of their hierarchy. And so we connected with an agent that was actually direct to that same NMA. And I'll tell you that our NMA is fantastic. They do an amazing job. I speak so highly of them whenever I have an opportunity to do that. What I will say is that this agent that we connected with, once we met her and she made the move, she was like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea all this other stuff was available to me. I would have been able to, and she was a good producer. She was like, I would have produced so much more if I had all the things that you guys offer as well. So a lot of times it's good to connect with, the more people who have a vested interest in your success that you can connect with, the better, right? So to me, it's a no-brainer to do that. So
more layers of support.
Exactly. Next one is what is your written release policy? I want to know if I decide I don't like you anymore, am I going to get an immediate release? So this used to matter a lot more. It used to be that they, you could have to stay with someone until the next AEP. So like if you came to them right now and I don't even know what month this is, May or June.
Just call it summer or spring.
Yeah. If you connect with someone in June and you wanted to make a move with certain carriers, you had to stick with your current upline until January. And so, and then wait another 3 months. Is that, or 6 months?
For the most of them are 3 months.
Yeah. Okay. Now, it used to mean a lot more. Now, there's companies that for the most part, if you there's a 3 month wait, but it still matters. And the reason it matters is if you do it like in June, if you ask for release and they say no, you could end up having to wait past that line. So you want to connect with someone that's going to tell you up front how they're doing it.
There's still some blackout periods.
Yeah, and I was going to say,
tied into all that.
Exactly. Like I'm not mad at someone who says, you know what, we don't release people after July. That's when we're starting our AEP planning. Everyone's already doing AHIP. That's not when we do our releases. We do it from January 1st through July 31st. I'm happy to do that. But if you're coming in August to me for a release, sorry, you're already part of our strategy. I'm not mad at them for that. I do like the idea of having people that will immediately give a release. Sometimes you might get held up, or if I just invested a bunch of money in you, or if I just did some marketing dollars for you, like I want to get that return. I don't give those out. Just I'm the reason we give out marketing dollars, or an NMA or any upline gives out marketing dollars in hopes to see some production and get a return on that investment. So there's certain times, and hopefully they put that in the writing also, is like, unless I just invested, significant amount of money in you, that's when we would hold on to that release. Yeah. But really we want you want to find someone that's not going to force you to work with them. Right. They have no incentive. If they're going to force you to work with them, then they have no incentive to deliver their best to you. Like, well, I've already got you. You can't move anyway. So,
and try to get that an answer in writing, if possible. You don't just want it to be, a conversation that you had over the phone, especially if they're saying, oh yeah, open release, immediate release, whatever the case may be. Yeah. And then you do end up in that situation a year, 2 or 3 years down the road, and you're looking for that release, and then it's just when I spoke to you on the phone, you said you would do it, and it's like, well, we need. There's nothing in writing that says that. So again, try to see it. See if you can get your hands on it. And
even writing. Then, to be honest, it's still not enforceable. If they choose not to, they don't have to. And this is why I actually really appreciate where the carriers are right now, where they've stopped this, where you're having to wait a super long time. Except, I think with Humana, at least for this year, there's a short window when you're allowed to move. Yeah. And so if that move doesn't happen, that's not a good thing. So that's why it's so important to work with people who want to continue to earn your business, instead of just say, I'm gonna lock you in here. Right. Another thought that we have is, what training do you offer after those first 30 days? So let's just say, okay, I got my training done, and so I'm good to go. You've trained me. What does ongoing training look like? Do you have regular trainings that I would be able to attend? What happens if it is 8 p.m. and I'm at a client's house and I have a question? Are you going to help me answer those questions? Give me a look at what this might actually look like. Are you gonna help me through a lot of this? Because that is a big struggle. So I can't remember if I talked about this last week, but there was an agent that came to us I think we met him in January, and they're like, I wasn't able to get any of my questions answered during AEP. I didn't even know who to talk to because everyone was so busy. And so I would just go to the Facebook groups and ask my questions there. I'm like, man, that's hopefully, as a good upline, you never want to hear that was one of your agents that did that. And I mean, if their heart's in the right place, if they're doing it the right way, I don't want to hear that they had to go to other people to get some answers.
Well, training it's an ongoing thing. It's more than just getting, once you've onboarded with your contracts and you go and do this certification trainings and now you're certified and ready to sell, are you really trained? I mean, we all know that the truth is, on paper and technically and legally speaking, yes, you are, but going out there and actually getting in the field and talking to people, you're going to realize that there are many more conversations that need to happen. And sometimes it's in the form, it's training that can be delivered in the form of a PowerPoint, and other times it's in the form of a conversation. So again, choosing the right partner is important, making sure that you have that direct line of contact so that if you are needing help, if you're needing some training, if you're running into issues, hey, I'm really not up to speed on this particular topic. Is there something that we can do to, is there a training out there for this, or can we spend some time together, try revisiting this so that I can make sure that I'm understanding it properly, goes a long way. But then the ongoing trainings, because training, I've been doing this 13 years now, and there's still trainings that I have to get in, and because things are constantly changing, the industry is constantly changing, and so you want to make sure that you're just up to date, up to speed with training and compliance, which we touched on, but those are very important pieces of you being a successful Medicare agent. Yeah,
and we talked about this one earlier. What technology do you provide, and what support comes with it? I would ask those questions, like where do you guys sit on technology? Not everybody is super big on it, and then maybe even get a demo of it. And the reason I think that's important is that there are there are some out there that have like, hey, this is our platform, this is what we do, and then you kind of look at it, you're like, ooh, that wasn't as impressive as I thought it would be. Right. So maybe get a demo, get a look at it, especially if you're a real tech savvy person. You can deal with something that's a little bit of a better tool, right. and prioritize that. The next would be, what type of agent is the best fit for your organization and who is not? And this is a good time to get that question. It's like, well, I would tell someone, like, regardless of, you have to be a self-starter. And that would, we talked about that earlier, but that would be something that I would tell an agent. But there's a lot of answers that different agencies have different strengths. And so there are some, even in our downline hierarchy, there's an agent who like sets up events for people and does that. Like she kind of relies on us to help her people get trained, and then once they do, she like gets them an ongoing, like she's gonna get them events set up
and plugged in.
Yeah, and so for stuff like that, she might not say needing to be a self-starter, right? So, but there's different agencies that are going to give you different answers, and so you want to get to know, you want to ask them those kind of questions.
Make sure it's compatible,
right? And then the last one would be just how are commissions paid, and that's such an important thing. And I personally, I want to take every opportunity I get to get paid directly by the carrier. I want to keep an agency's hands out of my money. And we've just seen these horror stories. We talked about it last week, so we won't, we've seen horror stories where an FMO ends up taking that agent's money and keeping it and keeping those renewals. And it's just something that doesn't sit right with me about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so just get the answers to those questions up front. You don't want surprises after you've contracted, onboarded, and then you're like, wait a second. These commissions, I'm getting these commissions from you and not from the carrier. How does that work? If I decide to leave, all those things. So ask that question up front and just find out and just make sure you have a good and clear understanding of how you're going to be getting paid. And if you're good with whatever that response is, then go ahead and proceed.
Yeah. So, all right, that's all we've got for today. One thing that we'll say is for next week, I'm kind of excited. We're going to do some role play or some explanations of. We're gonna connect with an agent, talk a little bit about how they've become successful, and then we're gonna move on to doing some role play with them and just get some. Hey, look, this is how I make this phone call. This is how I make that phone call. And so, thank you so much for watching our show. And until next time, get out there and sell something.